China is holding one of its most important political gatherings of the year this week. The annual legislative meeting, known as the National People's Congress, is where the leaders from the Chinese Communist Party review works of the previous year. It's also a chance for them to outline economic goals and the government's plans for the year. Anthony Saich joins me now. He's the Daewoo Professor of International Affairs at Harvard's Kennedy School. Thank you so much for joining me. We just talked about gas prices in a previous segment, and one of the things driving them down is the soggy Chinese economy. How bad are things for China, which is also having a slowdown in its real estate market? How bad are things?
Well, soggy is a good word. I wouldn't say it's in crisis, but I think it's definitely the case that they're not going to meet their ambitious targets. The premier said that the economy would grow at about 5% this year. I don't think any external analyst believes that. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, first of all, a number of the factors that drove the growth in the economy have really reached their sell-by date. You know, it's an aging population. The shift from agriculture to manufacturing has sort of completed its course. And then, as you just mentioned, it's being hit by other headwinds. We see a real estate crisis taking place, enormous local government debt, and of course, the tensions with the West are also creating problems. So the structural issues, but I would say equally on top of that, there have been some bad policy choices. For example, they talk about security now being as important as economic growth, and that comes in conflict. Secondly, there's the focus on the state-owned sector of the economy at the expense, really, of the private sector, which has really been the driver of growth. It provides about 90% of new jobs. It contributes 60% of GDP. So 5% seems a figure whisked out of nowhere.
Yeah. And how does this affect Xi? Does this put domestic pressure on him, create troubles for him?
Well, Xi's in such a strong position that he can really withstand significant pressures. Having said that, it is becoming quite clear that he's begun to realize the need to get more stimulus back into the economy. So they do need to revive growth. And that's meant that we've seen just over the last several months making positive noises about the private sector of the economy, the role it should play, trying to cozy up again to international and foreign business. He had, of course, the dinner with American business leaders out in California, and they've tried to say that China is open for business. I think the problem is, though, he's really not changing significantly his approach to economic growth and his approval for the state-owned sector of the economy dominating over the private sector, and seeing really that state-owned sector driving his policy priorities domestically and internationally. And that's going to act as a brake on growth.
And so, finally, as the second largest economy in the world, does this slowdown, how does this slowdown affect the rest of the world?
Well, the rest of the world is already responding. We heard from one of your previous speakers about the drop in demand for certain vital resources. And, you know, companies are already making their decisions. We've seen this year foreign direct investment is dropping. Many foreign companies are hedging their bets. They're looking overseas to place their manufacturing, but they're also stuck between a rock and a hard place. You can't really unravel very quickly 30, 40 years of setting up global supply chains very quickly. Nike, yes, produces more shoes outside of China than inside, but Apple is stuck. It has such a huge manufacturing plant, and it can't get those kinds of benefits elsewhere. And then, of course, for companies, you've got a 1.4 billion population. And despite that slowing economy, you have a growing middle class. They like to spend their money on luxury goods. And I think American companies want to stay in that market. So it's going to be a testing time, and companies are going to have to make some very difficult decisions, particularly if Washington strengthens its restrictions around engagement with China in key areas of the economy.
Anthony Saich, Daewoo Professor of International Affairs at Harvard's Kennedy School. Thank you so much.